for more on China's job market, let's turn to Yan Liang. She is the chair professor in economics at Willamette University. Thank you so much. Good to see you again, Yan Liang.
Good to talk to you, Sean.
Let's start by getting your take on the fact that China is leaving those key benchmarks alone. What kind of signal does it send to you? And as I understand it, China still hopes to have somewhere between 4.5 and 5% growth for the rest of this year.
Right. So I think what the policymakers have seen is the August data, where it shows that the retail sales have gone up by 4.6%, industrial output has expanded by 4.5%, the CPI has rebounded back to the positive territory. So all these seem that the economy is stabilizing. So I think that seems to suggest there's less need of lowering the interest rates. On the other hand, the Chinese yuan has been depreciating against the dollar, and so far, 5% depreciation this year. So I think there are some concerns of not lowering rates to further increase the gap between the Chinese interest rate and the U.S. interest rate, which then could further increase the depreciation of the currency.
What does this tell you as China continues to grow and continues to make its statements that it's going to continue to open up? What does this say about the second largest economy on earth?
Right. I think that's very important. I think, as the IMF has forecasted and many of the, other international institutions have pointed out, in a world where we are already facing all these challenges, in terms of economic recoveries after the pandemic, it's very important for countries to be able to work together and collaborate in terms of trade, in terms of investment, in terms of, labor flows, and so on and so forth. So if, we continue with trade fragmentation or investment fragmentation, that could shed the global GDP by 7% or even 13% if we add to the tech fragmentation. So I think that's very important for China to open up, to continue to embrace multilateral relationships and economic transactions and businesses, because China is so important in terms of supplying the world, but China is also a big importer of commodities and raw materials and other important ingredients for its industrial output. So I think it's just important for countries to work together, especially when the times are tight, when we really need that kind of cooperation and collaborations to move forward.
Yeah, and also with that huge middle-class population, hundreds of millions of people, internal consumption is also very important as well. And if you look at so many Western nations have really kind of targeted China's economy recently, saying it's concerned, it's on shaky ground. So what does this information tell you, and how do you think it's going to be embraced globally?
Right, I think it's very short-sighted when the Western politicians or policymakers are trying to shut themselves out of the Chinese markets. You're absolutely right. China has one of the largest middle class, and they're spending, they're importing. So I think it's very important for all these countries to try to do business with China. But on the other hand, I think China is now also a very significant, a very important players in green energies, in green products, like electric vehicles. So it's very important for countries to allow China to sort of contribute to their own efforts in transitioning their economy to a more sustainable environment.
Yeah, and I think about all the countries on earth that would love to have the prospect of 5% growth the rest of the year. Let's look back at during the end of the pandemic. When I say end, it's obviously still going on, but the economic punishment that went on, China instituted those measures that gave better interest rate loans, also other entities going out from the government to try and ease the punishing effects of the pandemic. Do you think you're seeing the fruits of that now?
Yes, absolutely. China definitely is doing very well in terms of preventing, deaths and, long-term sort of medical problems with the country. So definitely China also paid a hefty price for that lockdowns and, the economic slowdown in the past 3 years. But I think now China is back. They definitely are going to strengthen the confidence. They're going to, try to innovate. They're trying to, improve the production, improve people's confidence. There are definitely short-term, challenges, especially for the real estate markets. But we have seen a slew of policies recently in August and September that the government is trying to help with the real estate market without going back to the old path of credit-driven, debt-laden, high leverage kind of growth, but do take measures like relaxing the purchase of second homes and relaxing the mortgage rates and down payment restrictions and all that, and trying to stabilize the housing market. And I think that it's definitely the right step towards boosting the confidence and boosting demand and help the economy to be back on a more solid foot.
Yeah, and also concerns about the job prospects for the young, but we'll tackle that another time. Yan Liang, as always, thanks very much for putting this in focus.
Thank you.